Hello and welcome to the Faszienchannel. Today I have some really nice, lovely ladies, really important ladies with me. Sharon Wheeler and Jenny Knossen from the Netherlands.
You see, the people that started Esalen were Stanford University students, undergraduates. And Stanford's undergraduate program is a miracle of wonder. And yes, you know, when you think about having a session with Dr. Rolf, you knew it was going to be extremely, exquisitely painful. However, it's not the kind of pain that you get from having your tissue damaged.
And then you found out something interesting in the 70s.
She looked at it and she says, "I didn't know you could do that." And I said, "Me neither." Yeah. Whoa. We did it at Harvard, and we had the main auditorium, but we overflowed 3 times.
So the next thing is you want to spread out the whole thing into the world.
Yes, and I had taught in America for 10 years and not even got up to the top of Washington State. It was hopeless. It was too big, too diffuse, and I couldn't get anywhere with it. I couldn't get into National Institutes of Health. I couldn't get money for research. I couldn't do anything. So I thought, shoot, I mean, I'm not going to be able to do this. Somebody else is going to have to take it on later, I suppose. But what I can do is I can take it to as many different countries as I possibly can. And there I was, invited to come to Germany first. Yeah, Isolde Specke invited me to Germany, and I did the scar. Yeah, I did the scar work for them, and they loved it. Isolde is now a teacher. So I went to Germany, and that started me out in Europe. And I confess, I like Europe. I like it here. I do.
I think we have to try say that we are in the Schloss school.
Oh, yes.
Schlossschule, yeah.
Yeah, Schlossschule in St. Georgen in Austria. So it's really nice here.
Oh, yes.
And I think you enjoy it.
I do. I really do. It gives me great pleasure to travel. It does. I travel well. I don't get jet lag, thank heavens, at least not coming one way. When I go the other way, I'm flat on my face for a couple days. but beyond that, I travel real well. And I like traveling. I like people. I like doing things. I don't like places so much as I like the people. Mm-hmm. They're all interesting. They're very interesting.
Yeah, me too.
So I've been, so I figured since I couldn't get to the top of America, but when you go to a smaller country, it's much easier. And in Poland, we're at the very top of everything. Wojtek's working on their Olympic athletes and their presidents and their congressmen and everybody. He's working on all those kinds of people now. And it's only been a few years.
And then you meet that lovely lady over here.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Then we met Yanni.
Yes, yes.
And goes on and on. Tell us about it.
It really goes on and on. Like, yeah, for me, it was my journey started with structural integration from anatomy trains. That's where my journey started to get in the fascia world and working on that. So I was in my last part 3 of anatomy trains, and that's where I met Wojtek, where Sharon is talking about. And in anatomy trains we have 12 sessions, and from Dr. Rolf, the Rolfing, they have 10 sessions for get the structural integration done. And I don't know, I think it was in session 5 or 6 that we were, and that's where I just felt like Wojtek and the other teachers, they said like, okay, everybody was deep, but not deep enough. And I said, what? Why are you not deep enough? I thought I was going like, whoa, whatever I was doing. And then one of the teachers, she showed me like, he laid just his hand on my chest and said like, okay, can you feel that I'm sinking in through your system? And I completely felt him going through, and like, okay, how do I do with that? Mm-hmm. So I can feel it, but okay. And in the evening when studying, I had a very nice, like we were just like in England, in a cozy house, like Hansel and Gretel, like a small cozy stuff. And my colleague had a very nice room upstairs. That's where she's sleeping. And I was in the kitchen, just like here, in the kitchen, like Cinderella. My bed, completely a mess. And I was studying it, and I was just having my hands on my thigh and just looking and like, what's happening under my hand? I felt like there's coming a river underneath, like I felt like, and I could play with it, and I was like, this is just in my mind. It's not happening. This is, so I really thought, okay, if I want to know if this is something that I'm in my mind, or can my hands do something else? I had, the next day I said to Wojciech, like, okay, I would like to do an experiment. Would you be my guinea pig? He said, yes, of course. So because I knew if I could keep his system or his, that he didn't fall asleep, then it would be something. And if he would fall asleep, I said, okay, then I can go home. And I did a treatment from him, and I had no idea what I'm doing. Just like with Sharon, I just put my hands on his head and went just down his body and whatever. And I had a feeling like, oh, something is swimming there. No, something is swimming there. And at the end, he was as quiet as a mouse. And I thought like, oh, he's sleeping. I can go home. And he opened his eyes. He said, what the hell did you do with me, and what are your hands doing? I said, I have no idea. And he said, can you come to Poland and do a treatment with me? Because he said, you have something. He said, I have a lot of hands on my body, but what your hands are doing, it's amazing. And I said, but what am I doing? Then please tell me. Tell me something, like, what are these hands, what they are capable of, and what they are doing? So I had no idea. So I went to Wojciech in Poland. I treated whole his family with whatever I did. I just put my hands on it, and something happened. And people were all like, oh, beautiful. And I had no idea. And then Wojciech said, you have to come back, because I met a lady, Sharon Wheeler. She's amazing. You will love her. And so I said, okay, I'll come, I trust you. So I came there, and the moment I met her, it felt like, oh, I do understand what she's doing. Now I know what's happening, and now I can see it, because in anatomy trains you have body reading, and everybody was like, oh, but if you have that muscle like this, and you can see it like that, and they were asking me like, what do you see? And I said, I had to think first 5 minutes, because I can't see the way they see. Okay. And I say, there's something wrong. What muscle? No idea. What structure? No idea. But that's wrong. And that's the way I was looking, and that's the way she was explaining how about the system and where the impacts of injuries are. So for me, when I met the first time, I was like, oh, that's it. I'm hooked. And that's really what happened. Wojciech said, like, you have to treat her, and like, okay, I will. And she was, at that moment, we had not the connection yet. And I now know that I have to ask the system or the people to, are you allowing me to help you? And I didn't. So the first time, not much happened. Mm-hmm. We didn't have that connection yet. And she didn't open, and I had idea like, I can't go in. But that was, for me, a big learning, like, okay, I have to ask the system. Mm-hmm. So it's always everything, just like Sharon says, it's every piece, everything you do is a learning curve. Mm-hmm. And then there was the next one, the next course, and that was also scar work. I came back and came back for a bone work class. And then I wanted to do the bone work again, but here in Langenargen in Germany. And then the organizer said like, but it's full, but you already did it. Maybe you can assist. I'm like, assist? I only did once bone work, please. I have no idea what to teach. But he said, you'll get there. Like, just throw me for the lions, and well, we got there. And that was just the start of a journey, following each other. So I followed all her courses. Yes, scar work was the first one for me to graduate because, well, I had a lot of courses. And when COVID hit all of us, we really get the connection deeper, because then every week we were calling each other, like video calling, and on Thursday it was like 6 o'clock, like okay, set up again, and that was really getting the next step together and really get that big connection that we got. And in COVID time, we said like, okay, we're gonna organize courses, and that's where we started traveling together by car, because, well, we couldn't fly, but we could drive by car.
But you also wrote a book.
No, I didn't.
No.
I didn't. No, we're gonna write a book.
No.
It was Jan.
Yeah.
Jan wrote the book.
Yeah.
But
With you?
yes. No, we.
It was Jan.
That
Yeah.
was Jan.
That was Jan.
Jan wrote the book.
You wrote a book about this.
I helped edit a little bit. I mean, but that was Jan.
Yeah, okay.
No, she's the one that did that. I said, I think I might be capable of a chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, so the connection goes together, and then what happened then?
Magic. Really magic. Like, for me, it's like I have the feeling that, and I don't know if I can say it aloud, but I have the feeling that how Dr. Rolf saw in her, she sees in me. And I think that's why, for me, this work it's not only the scar work, but it's all her work. She has more scar work teachers, and we're getting to create bone work teachers. And what I'm thinking about, and that's coming in the future, we're building up the organization around her. And what I'm thinking is, because she has been taught by Dr. Rolf structural integration, and I think she needs, no, that's not just she needs, it's already there. There is a structural integration way of she's doing it with scars and bones. And scars is such a nice entry to understand her work. And when you're hooked in scar work, you're gonna learn bone work, and you're gonna learn the tail and pelvis, and for sure that's the holy grail, the cranial. And why is it the cranial so much? Because I think that's because she did so many 7-hour sessions of the cranial.
So, am I right if I say that's another chapter of the whole structural integration book, which you write on? You wrote the book?
I think so.
So you're writing the book further and further on?
Yeah. What was it that someone was saying the other day? That Rosemary Fidus, who knew Dr. Rolf very well, and me very well, said to one of my friends, to Lori, that you make sure you help Sharon get her work out, because it's the next evolution of structural integration. That's what she said. And I didn't realize that Rosemary had said that, you know? And Rosemary said it not to me, but to Lori. And then Lori said that, and when we had a Zoom call. And Lori said that, and I went, wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize Rosemary thought that. But it's not so much that it's an evolution. It is an evolution, but it is taking the parts that Dr. Rolf did. Like, Dr. Rolf did bone work. She did. I'm not kidding. And she knew she did. And she showed, I asked her in advanced class. I was lucky because My friend Frances was with that class. It was her last class. And Frances had developed a little bit of cancer on his vocal cord and needed to have surgery. And she was incensed that one of her people should develop cancer. And he wasn't going to get away with that twice. So poor Frances had to have a session practically every week or every day. He was really, and I remember at one point about halfway through this 3-month class, he said to me sort of pitifully as we were driving up from, the Washington, D.C. area back up to Philadelphia for yet another week of crazy classes, right? He said that he really hoped she forgot about him that day. He was kind of tired of getting work all the time. And, yeah, so he was my good buddy, and I'm responsible for getting him into the mess of structural integration. So when he'd get his work, we were allowed to sit by the table, and I'd hold his hand, and he'd have something to squeeze when it was miserable, and I'd commiserate, I'd be the nice person there. If he needed water, I'd get him water. Be with him, right, So I'm with him, and Dr. Rolf is working up in his rib cage and stuff, and darned if she didn't open up that right pulmonary artery. I saw her do it, and I went, oh, man, I'm supposed to do that? You've got to be kidding. I can't do stuff like that. Oh, come on, So I'm watching the circulation change throughout his whole structure. His face is pinking up. All kinds of stuff is happening. And the alveoli that are shut down in that rib cage are popping open, and it's tickling like crazy. And he can't do anything about it. There's no way he can even touch them, right, And he's trying not to laugh. And I knew Francis very well. He was a very wry person. He'd say a joke, and if you didn't get it, he wouldn't laugh. He could hold that back. And he's holding back the laughing. And I thought, well, that's not good. He should laugh. If he needs to laugh, he should laugh, and it'll roll it through, right? So I kind of nudged him, and I said, Francis, tickles in your chest, huh? And he goes, yeah. And I said, really, you can't do anything about it? You can't even, rub it to make it go? He goes, no. So we start laughing. And she's working down on his leg, which was, related to this problem. And she looks down at me across the table, and she says, what's so funny? And I went, oh, God, now I've done it. I finally made her mad at me. Oh, no. So I sort of confessed that she had opened up that right pulmonary artery, and those alveoli were opening up, and it was tickling him, and he was kind of repressing it, and he needed to express that through, and I thought I'd help a little bit by saying something about it. And I looked up at her, and she just looked at me. And she went back to work, and then she looked up at me. Third time she looked up at me, she says, 100 years ago, they would have burned you. I hope I never forget those words, because they sure meant a lot to me then. That was very sweet of her. But, I could see that. And later I asked her, I said, Dr. Rolf, did you know that you had opened up the right pulmonary artery? And she said, no, I didn't. I said, I saw it. She said, yes. She said, and your job is going to be, when something like this happens, you're to tell everyone so they can see it too. So I got drafted into sitting right next to her fingers. I couldn't have been more happy. My nose was this far. I was right there for the rest of the class. This is about halfway through the class that this happened. So 3-month class, for a month and a half, I was sitting on the floor, not to be in the way of people seeing. And I was saying, you might want to watch now, because this hip is going to shift. It's going this way. There it goes. Do you see? And then they would see it, because they'd be staring out the window or looking for whatever, doing something, not paying attention. When you're looking but you're not seeing because you're thinking about something else, but you sort of look like it. A lot of people in the class would do this sort of thing. But when I would call attention, they would stop their daydreams and look, and they would actually see it. And what she would do is she would make it happen, and then she'd say, did you all see that? And they missed it because they were spaced, right? So I could focus them up before it happened, because I can see those first starting quivers before this thing starts to go. I know when it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I can talk and see right now, that's when it's going. Yeah. And these things moved huge amounts. You couldn't miss it. If you were looking, you couldn't miss it. So that was my job, was to alert people to that. So there I am with my, my nose right up to her. And I had to ask her about bones, because I knew she knew already, because she put my hands under hers, which is what I have you guys do, right? And she worked through me. And that way you can feel the change happen. And you know you're supposed to get that quality, and she did that for me. I don't know if she did that for anybody else, but she sure did it for me. So I knew what I was looking for.
What she did afterwards, like for the bones.
Yes, yes. So
That's how you
so
put
I
her.
had to
Oh,
bring
yes.
it up. There I am sitting right next to her, and I got my courage up, and I finally said, Dr. Rolf, you know, I can get the bone quality to change. And she just looked at me, and she gave me a little grin, you know. You know, and she says, watch this, she says. And I go, okay. So she says, feel this lady's sacrum. There's a lady on her side. So I could feel, and the sacrum was kind of bowed too much, and it had stuff all over it. It was spiky little stuff, and it was weird and gritty and everything. And it was like, you know, in the wrong place, popping back out of the body and stuff like that. It was just a mess, right? She says, feel this sacrum. So I felt the sacrum. And then, what does she do? She takes her hand into the sacrum. She takes her hand and she just rolled that hand right under the sacrum like that. And then she stayed still. Ha! Didn't move. About 3-4 minutes. Huh? Long time. Then she took her hand off. She said, now feel it. It was the right shape. All of those accretions were gone. It was set into place. It was perfect.
Crazy.
And I went, she knows. She knows. But she was afraid to bring it out. She kept bringing up Wilhelm Reich. Wilhelm Reich kind of overstepped his bounds a little bit and was arrested, put in prison, and died in prison. And she took that as a big lesson. So she didn't want to be talking about bones. Structural integration is tissue work. She's allowed to do tissue work. She starts getting to the bones. The osteopaths, the chiropractors will come for you, right? So that's their territory. You're not allowed to do that, right? So she wouldn't talk about it. Not as a thing, because it was out of her scope and she didn't want to be shut down.
And that's now why it's now time.
It's time.
It's time to get the bone work and the skull work out.
They could shut me down for doing it, but they're not.
Well, they can try.
They can try, but I think I got too many people.
You picked the same lady again, such an independent one again. So Sharon never stops. I never stop, and that's why it's going through, and that's why this bone work is like going in the future way up. And that's why with Dr. Heike Jaeger, with the science, she can explain it on cell level, what we're doing. It's not a woohoo, it's now getting out that bones are liquid too. There's liquid in it, there's blood, there's a sensory, everything is in it. So the way we are thinking a little bit different, but we're just working through the whole system. And that's why, and bones is one part of the system. And when you get the tension right, it will move, it will go back. And just like what Sharon says and Dr. Rolf says, it always goes home if you get the tension right.
So what are you planning concrete for the future?
I'm planning, I'm now certified for all Sharon her workshops. So I'm teaching, and I'm going to teach with Dr. Heike, because I have the hands, she has the brains. With those two together, I think we're gonna really get this work done in a proper way, so everybody will understand it, and it's easy, and it's in the science way talked about, so it's for everybody to reach out. We started with structural integrators people, but we're building out now that bone work is also getting available for massage therapists, for physios, for osteopaths, for everybody in its own way. That's why the combination of, like for Dr. Heike, her science and her cell level biology, and the hands, that's both the connection. That's I think the next level to raise Sharon's work and to raise what Dr. Rolf started.
To make a whole thing about it.
To make it more whole. and get a new structural integration, 12 sessions, and build it up from the bones.
Cool.
Where scar work is going to be one of the first pieces. Because you first have to start to ease the scars before anything will change. So that's why we build it up from the ground, literally, but also for the 12 sessions will be get your first, like, I like the way of Anatomy Trains does his setting up the first 4 sessions, and I think it's going to be the first 3 sessions, like get your jacket, so get the superficial layers loose. So your first session will be the front line, your second session will be the second session will be the back line. The third session will be connecting front and back by the lateral line. And then we have a 4th session for the inner line of the legs, so you have also the inner side. So that will be first get loose your jacket so everything inside can change. Then you have 4 sessions for your structure. Build it up from the ground, so the next session will be the feet and knees. And maybe you'll get to the pelvis, but build it from ground. The next one will be pelvis, spine, and third will be ribs, spine. That will be the
Thorax.
the next one, the thorax. And then put the head straight on it and get the cranial
So there's
in its piece. And everything has been set up for this one. This is the most important, but you really have to set up everything to get this one done. And then you have 4 sessions to get to integrate everything you changed and some leftovers.
Yeah, really important. Yeah.
So that's how her 12 sessions, what I'm thinking, be in there, and that's the thing we're gonna really, really make with Dr. Heike, because we're gonna write a book together about this.
Cool.
And then we can talk in the future
Oh, yeah, we
about
will.
more of these sessions of her.
Thank you
Yes.
very much for your interview. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.